Hi there. So, in the part three of discussing about the dollar, we know that money is a medium of exchange, but there's a difference between currency and money. But I know a lot of Gen Zs might not understand. So, money is any medium of exchange that has some form of intrinsic value, like gold or silver. But when it comes to currency, currency is anything that the government declares as a medium of exchange. So currency does not need to have any intrinsic value, and a piece of paper like a thousand shillings note can be a currency as long as the government declares that is the money and that is the value that money presents. That money presents. So but in real sense, a thousand shillings note, it's just a paper. But both of them, both money and currency, are acceptable as a legal tender. So when it comes to the dollar, it became acceptable in the whole world as a medium of exchange, hence giving it some kind of invincibility. So it continued being accepted in the whole world even after Richard Nixon severed its ties, that is its link to gold. So just check out this clip and then we will continue.
The strength of a nation's currency is based on the strength of that nation's economy. And the American economy is by far the strongest in the world. Accordingly, I have directed the Secretary of the Treasury to take the action necessary to defend the dollar against the speculators. I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets, except in amounts and conditions determined to be in the interest of monetary stability and in the best interest of the United States.
That was Richard Nixon in 1971. So having the dollar being accepted in the whole world as a medium of exchange, it doesn't mean that it has always been smooth. So some countries have always been like critics of the dollar. So the United States became the superpower after developing a working nuclear weapon, and so did the Russians. The US was expanding its influence, and so was the Russians. And those of you guys from Western Kenya know that the Nyanza Provincial Hospital was among the couple of projects that were funded by the Russian government when they were both trying to compete on having influence all over the world. So this expansion of influence led to clash between the two superpowers, and they have since been joined by China. So the United States started using the power of the dollar to control the Russian influence. Since the dollar had already been accepted by many countries, that one gave Russians some difficulties fighting it. So the Russians tried forming allies with Vietnam, and the US went to war with the Vietnam. Russia went to Afghanistan, and US decided to fund the Mujahideen warriors to help fight the Russians. So when the US went to war with the Taliban, around the same time most of the Gen Zs were 2, 3, or 4 years old, the Russians decided to supply weapons to the Taliban. So US versus Russian war, because someone might say, okay, why don't they just go head on and fight? Any war between, any direct confrontation between the United States and Russia will mean the end of the world. So it's not likely to happen. So Saddam and Gaddafi were critics of the dollar too. So and they realized they have a potent weapon in their hand, that is oil. So they started discussing on strategies of using gold as a means of settlement on oil trades. So the best excuse to remove Saddam from power was to state he had weapons of mass destruction. He didn't have them. Gaddafi was framed as a dictator and was subsequently removed from power, and he ended up being killed. And the campaign to remove Gaddafi from power was sold to the public and to the world as a liberation of the Libyan people. So if Gaddafi was still alive today, Africa could probably be having its own version of the World Bank, hence taking control of their own resources. Did you know that we still have about 40 countries in West Africa whose currency is printed in France, UK, and Germany? Guess what? When they print those currencies, the currencies of those around 40 West African countries, they give those currencies to the West African countries as a loan, and then they take the natural resources of those countries, that is gold and silver, as a settlement for that loan. So if we go back to the Russia, so both the Russia and the Middle East have a large oil and natural gas reserve, but Russia, unlike the Middle East, Russia does not have like a port that is accessible throughout the year. Middle Eastern countries, they are strategically located in the Persian Gulf, and they can export oil. They can export oil and natural gas to the rest of the world. So Russia being far in the north, the only accessible waterway is mostly frozen due to the extreme cold. Thus, oil tankers cannot access the Russian hub throughout the year. So to solve that, Russia had decided to talk to Syria so that they can build a pipeline from Russia through Syria to the Gulf, so that they can access that gateway to the world market for oil. But the US, they decided, okay, Russia will not sell that oil, they will not build that pipeline. So US funded some opposition forces in Syria, and therefore there was a civil war. I think that war is still going on right now. So that is why the Russian decided to protect Assad and fund his government. Assad, I think he is still the president of Syria as we speak. So the same case is happening with Russia and Ukraine. The US tried to expand its influence to Ukraine, and that is why Russia decided to invade that country. So as a Kenyan in the United Nations Security Council, one should never ever take sides when these two giants are crashing. Kenya shouldn't have taken any sides. They should have stayed neutral, because taking sides, it's not gonna change anything if Russia decided to continue with that war. So you might be wondering, okay, well, Russia, Ukraine, oil, how does that affect you as a Kenyan? So Ukraine is a major grain producer, and if the price of bread is going up as we speak, it's because by taking sides, you have limited your options of who can service your import needs. So Kenya cannot just buy Russian oil. It has already taken sides. So don't ever bow to pressure. Unlike when you take sides, you can never be punished from being neutral. So in the next episode, we will try to see the systems of the government, and then after we are done with that, so we will try to see how government use various strategies. Right? Okay, stay tuned.